7 o'clock, May 6th, Monday evening, regular session of Waverly City Council will call to order. Roll call, please.
Sorry.
I am here.
Kangas.
Here.
McKenzie.
Here.
Rafi. Here. Scherer.
Present.
Waldstein. Here. And Bergen is absent.
Bergen is in Germany. If you'll all join in, rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Move approval of the agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion? All those in favor of the agenda as presented, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes from April 8th, 2019 Strategic Planning Work Session minutes and the April 15th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the minutes for April 8th and April 15th.
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of April 8th and 15th. Any discussion? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Minutes for April 8th and 15th are approved. Our guest council person for the month of May will be Blake Bishop. Welcome, Blake, to council, and hope you find it an enjoyable experience. And if you care to tell us and the public a little bit about yourself.
Try talking to yours. Yeah, okay. Yes, Blake Bishop. I've lived here my whole life. I work for a financial planning firm down in Waterloo. My wife's a second grade teacher in Janesville, and that's really it to us. Yeah.
You have privileges of discussion, ask questions, whatever you'd like to do, everything except the other ones will not let you vote.
Okay.
Very good. Welcome again.
Thank you.
This is the date, time, and place for a public hearing on Ordinance 1061, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waverly, Iowa by repealing Chapter 90 thereof entitled Building Code and enacting and adopting a new Chapter 90 in lieu of the entitled Building Code. Will we receive any written or oral comments, Carla?
I have not, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak to this?
Good evening. My name is Brian Rogers. My address is 310 Hickory Lane, Otley, Iowa. And I believe all of you have received correspondence from me prior to this meeting regarding the codes that Waverly is proposing to adopt do not meet the Iowa law, Chapter 105. I'm here on behalf of the Iowa chapter of the International Association of Plumbing and Mechanical Officials, the United Association Plumbers and Pipe Fitters throughout Iowa, and the Plumbing, Heating, Cooling Contractors of Iowa. It's very clearly stated in Chapter 105 what the codes of the state of Iowa will be. And since this was enacted by legislation, all of the plumbing and mechanical codes adopted by the state, educational facilities throughout Iowa are trained, tested, and certified to these codes. So I would urge you to not adopt these codes that are not regulated by the state, that are not approved by the state. I did receive a response back, and I appreciate that response. It was stated that there were very minor differences between the codes. After speaking with some individuals from Broward County who I believe does your inspections, and then if the state of Iowa adopts the 2018 codes as you mentioned, and we are notified by them that we need to comply, I assure you we will act accordingly. I do have a draft letter that was supposed to go out to jurisdictions January 18th from Jennifer Hart, the Executive Director of the Iowa Plumbing Mechanical Systems Board and the Iowa Department of Public Health, stating that unfortunately Jennifer became very ill and the letter was never sent out. I've been in contact with Kane Young with the Iowa Department of Public Health and Assistant Attorney General David Ranch. This letter should be going out in the next couple weeks because they have filed the intended action with the Iowa Rules Committee to go ahead and move forward with the adoption of the 2018 codes as presented. So I urge you, City Council, to follow the rules and the law of the state and adopt those codes as required by Chapter 105. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity tonight to speak to you all. Thank you.
Well, I guess first of all, explain to us what the differences are.
It's going to take a lot more than a short amount of time. I mean, a good example, I mean, if you take the two plumbing codes and you say that the top one is very similar to the bottom one, it can't be. The International Plumbing Code only encompasses and has a scope for commercial buildings. Okay, you cannot use this plumbing code for residential structures. You have to use the International Residential Code. Chapter 24 through 33 of the International Residential Code covers fuel, gas, and plumbing for residential structures. Then you have to use the International Fuel Gas Code in order to do fuel gas piping. The state is, in Chapter 105, is requiring NFPA 54 and 58. Now, I don't know what kind of liability a jurisdiction would have by adopting codes not mandated by the state for fuel gas piping, but in the event of a catastrophic failure of a fuel gas system, how much liability does a jurisdiction have if they do not comply with state law and adopt codes that aren't compliant? I'm not a lawyer and I don't pretend to be, but I would imagine there is some liability there. There are a lot of differences between the codes. Like I said, we don't have all that time to go through all the technical differences between all those codes. And so.
Now, I'm a career electrician. Been licensed by the state since they adopted state licensing. Are plumbers licensed by the state?
Yes, they are.
So any code that's adopted, they would know about
Yes.
through their ongoing, if it's set up like
Yep, they're
continuing
trained, tested, and certified by the state of Iowa to the codes in Chapter 105. And they also have their CEUs each year, every three years, every code cycle. Single license holder is 8 CEU hours, and multi-license holder is 14 CEU hours every 3 years.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments?
And so the Chapter 105, it did pass in the legislative session or did not?
Yes, Chapter 105 passed years ago. It was just made on 105.4C in Chapter 105 became effective for jurisdictions December 31st, 2016 is when it was required jurisdictions follow Chapter 105. There were 7 years for jurisdictions to get on board, so there was that transition period. Unfortunately, maybe some jurisdictions weren't aware of that, and they didn't get on board. So.
And so what percentages of jurisdictions now are using that versus the standards that Bremer County has been following?
As of right now, I know that there's about 15 communities that have not followed Chapter 105 law out of the state of Iowa. There may be more there, but I know of about 15 right now. And the Iowa Department of Public Health is in the process, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks, of sending out the letter notifying all jurisdictions that are required to follow 105 what their obligations are.
Are there any plans for updating that with new action that would be potentially more in line with the international code? At the legislative level?
As far as updating the codes, not that, no. Right now, it's they are working on updating the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code, the 2018 International Mechanical Code, NFPA 54 and NFPA 58.
And the Department of Public Health has jurisdiction over all this?
They have jurisdiction over the plumbing and mechanical codes, yes. The Department of Public Safety has jurisdiction over all the other codes.
And so what you're saying is that now every jurisdiction in Iowa is supposed to follow the standards you're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
So why aren't the 15 that you mentioned?
I don't know if it's, they haven't been notified, they're not aware. It's hard to believe that they're not aware. I can't speak for those other jurisdictions.
Could they be following the international code?
They are following the international code.
So there must be maybe some reason for that.
What that could be, I don't know. But like I said, they will be getting notified by the Iowa Department of Public Health that they are not in compliant and are going to be required to change over to the codes that are being adopted by the other however many jurisdictions throughout Iowa. It's to create uniformity. Everybody out in the field wants to travel throughout Iowa and provide their trade profession under one set of rules and have that uniformity that they can go to any jurisdiction and they know what's going to be expected of them. When jurisdictions don't follow Chapter 105 rules, it creates an imbalance and it can make it difficult for professionals in our trade to do their job. I am a licensed master plumber and mechanical in the state of Iowa, so I'm very well aware of the ramifications of having different codes.
Have you talked to the Bremer County supervisors?
I sent them a letter today similar to what you folks received from me.
So you haven't had time to hear back from them
Correct.
out there?
Yeah. And I know that's an issue because I believe Bremer County does Waverly's inspections, so I have not got a response back from them yet.
But James, you talked to them, right?
I
To the
talked
county?
actually to Randy, who does our inspections about it.
Oh, okay.
He's in the audience if you want to
Okay. Yeah.
have him have any comment. I'm sure.
I'd be interested just to
certainly
hear
can.
his perspective on it.
Just maybe before you step away from the mic,
Sure.
in Chapter 105, can you direct me to where it states what codes? As I read it, it deals with licensing of professionals, not stipulating what codes have to be followed.
In section 105.4, plumbing installation code or rules.
Thank you.
I just tell you that I'm looking at the code section, citing 105.4. It adopts a state code which is applicable to structures owned by the state or agency of the state. And then it says, however, a local jurisdiction that adopts an ordinance is not required to adopt by ordinance the state plumbing code or the state mechanical code unless they're subject to the provisions in subparagraph C, which is for jurisdictions with population of more than 15,000. So technically under the rule, since we're under 15,000 as a community, we wouldn't be subject to that requirement to adopt.
And would therefore be compliant.
Well, we'd have our own code that
Right.
applies. Now, we have to apply the state code when it comes to a state structure or state building.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a correction to that. If you continue reading, it says cities that have adopted a plumbing code or mechanical code as of April 26, 2013 shall have until December 31st, 2016 to adopt the state plumbing code or the state mechanical code in lieu thereof. So because you have adopted plumbing and mechanical codes as of April 26, 2013, this requirement does apply to Waverly.
And I wouldn't know anything about, I mean, I don't know if that is true or not. It's hard to tell from that language because it seemed to apply to the cities that are over 15,000, but I haven't seen the rules.
I guess that's the way I read, when I read through it, that's the way I read it, that Section C was dealing with populations over 15,000, so anything in that subsection was
That's
for
right.
that, not,
Do you read that in that last sentence where it's specifically stating cities that have adopted a plumbing code or a mechanical code as of April 26, 2013?
yes, I see that. Again,
Yeah,
it's
so-
within the paragraph dealing with communities over 15,000, so it
So there's the two requirements. Jurisdictions over 15,000 do not have a choice. You are going to be required to adopt the state mandated codes. Jurisdictions under 15,000 that had not adopted a plumbing or mechanical code prior to April 26 aren't required to adopt these codes according to the state. Those that are under 15,000 that have adopted the plumbing code or mechanical code as of that date are required to.
It doesn't read that way.
I understand your interpretation of that paragraph. I just don't know that I necessarily agree with it.
I don't think you'd mix those provisions in one subparagraph. If you're talking about 15,000 or more, you wouldn't suddenly put in a provision that applies to every city.
Yeah, I'm
Or it
even
doesn't
state
explain it.
15,000 or less would be the comment there. So as I read it as well, and I've read quite a bit as myself, 15,000 or more that has not adopted a plumbing or mechanical, which have December 31st of 16 to do so. If they have, and I think they're still referring to 15,000 or more cities, if you have adopted prior to 13, then you have until the end of 16 to do so.
In lieu of.
Whereas state code
says
says
in
it
lieu
would
of.
state 15,000 or under, to be clear.
Yeah.
I think the assumption that it applies to all cities, not 15,000 or more, I don't think it's relevant. I just don't agree with it.
The one I look at is in paragraph B there, talks about a local jurisdiction that can adopt its own standards that are more restrictive than the state code. So I guess the question is, the ones we are looking at, are they more restrictive or are they less restrictive?
Well, the thing is, you first have to adopt the state plumbing code. And once you first adopt the state plumbing and mechanical code, then you can go in and make amendments to that code that are more restrictive than those two codes. But first you have to adopt it. You can't just go out and adopt a totally different code and say it's a more restrictive standard. You have to adopt the state code and then apply more restrictive amendments to that code.
Okay, and then the other part I was getting at is when you do that, you provide to the state board what those restrictions are, and then the state board shall maintain on its internet site the text of all local jurisdiction standards that differ from the applicable statewide code. So that sentence by itself, that the state board is maintaining on its internet site a text of all local jurisdiction that is different than the state code, would indicate to me that the state does not have a blanket for all the communities have to follow the same standards if they're going to keep a website that shows the differences.
Well, that website is only showing more restrictive requirements that jurisdictions are adopting. That way, any plumber or mechanical tradesperson can go in that jurisdiction and should be able to go to that website, know that the state code is applicable in that jurisdiction, but be able to go to the website and say, oh, but this jurisdiction is requiring A, B, C, D, which is more restrictive than the state code.
Has the state board adopted the code you're referring to yet?
They are in the process of it. They have
So the
filed.
fact that it says also in the code, if we're being technical about, that the state board shall adopt within 6 months of its release these codes, the state itself has been non-compliant for 2 years almost.
Yeah, pretty close. They've had a lot of issues at the State House with illnesses and thing with.
For 2 years.
Well, I'm not here to, make excuses for the state.
I'd like to hear from Randy McKenzie, sir.
Well, I have one question.
Go ahead, sure.
Is the state code more restrictive than the international building or plumbing code?
Yes, it is.
As a whole, the whole state plumbing code is more restrictive than the international.
What do you mean by as a whole? There are
Well,
many.
what we've been at,
many.
what's in the proposed ordinance is to adopt the International Plumbing Code 2018 edition and the International Mechanical Code of 2018. So those are more restrictive. The state code is going to be more restrictive, or that's what they're adopting?
The state is in the process of adopting the 2018 International Mechanical Code and the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code. And yes, the 2018 Uniform Plumbing Code is more restrictive than the 2018 International.
So what's in our proposed ordinance will meet your objections, because we're adopting the latest 2018 versions.
But it's not the Uniform Plumbing Code as required by state law.
Plumbing seems to be different than mechanical, and right, mechanical is
Yeah.
with international, and plumbing is not, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, plumbing and mechanical are not the same thing.
But they have to
If anything, I would just
standards.
request you table this, contact the Assistant Attorney General that represents the Iowa Department of Public Health State Plumbing and Mechanical Systems Board. Wait for the letter you get from the state, and if you have any questions, deal with the Iowa Department of Public Health. You're going to be getting this letter, and I can read it to you, or you can have it.
Randy, do you have anything to say in response to this?
Copy that, please.
I'm not aware of the letter that he's speaking of.
Come up to the mic, please, Randy. Either one.
Yeah, I'm not aware of the letter. As far as I know, the state has talked about something of notifying local jurisdictions for the last 2 years. It hasn't done it. As far as the international codes, it's a cohesive set of codes, and they go together. They reference one another, and the gentleman mentions that the thickness of the International Plumbing Code versus the Uniform Plumbing Code. There is an obvious difference because the International Plumbing Code is specific to commercial properties. The plumbing that references for residential use is already in the International Residential Code. It's all in one code book. So roughly the same language is in the codes. There's very minor, subtle differences. And let's see here. The I codes, they not only work together, they include references to thousands of standards, including the same references that the state references in their adopted codes. So they're more easily administered than jumping through NFPA standards and National Fuel Gas and Liquid Petroleum, because those same references are referenced in the international codes.
So, it sounds to me like there are two key questions so far. One is our size and whether our population and whether whether we even fall under any of this compliance. And then the second question, if we do, whether our code that is proposed here for us to act on tonight is as or more restrictive than chapter, whatever it's called, the state one that we're supposedly getting a letter about.
Well, as Brian mentioned, the codes are so extensive. The one's going to be more restrictive than the other, back and forth. Where one might be a little more lenient, one is going to be more restrictive. I will say that the International Residential Code, right in section 102, applicability, states that the provisions of this code shall not be deemed to nullify any provisions of local, state, or federal law. That's in the residential code. And it's the very same language in the International Plumbing Code. It references that in 102.10. Provisions of this code shall not be deemed to nullify any provisions of local, state, or federal law. And we've been enforcing the international code since I started enforcing codes in 2000. The Uniform Plumbing Code that the state and actually all the contractors are licensed through the Plumbing and Mechanical Board through the state. So that doesn't matter what code we're enforcing. They're all licensed under the same thing. They have to meet the same educational requirements for the licensure. That went into effect as soon as the state, 6-7 years ago when the state took over all licensing. So I lost my train of thought there.
Why don't you take a look, and I'll point out something in the letter that was given to us. It says the Home Rule Authority does not allow cities with a population more than 15,000 to enact or maintain plumbing and mechanical codes different from the state codes. It talks about 15,000 again.
So that would sound like...
Below that, they don't.
Yeah.
They're saying Home Rule doesn't allow populations of more than 15,000 because it only regulates communities of more than 15,000 to make them do the code that's a state code. And I think below 15,000, they don't have to. Although the plumbers that are operating under licensure should probably have to comply with both codes in that sense. So the more restricted elements of each code.
But licensure is different than...
Right, because they're licensed under the state code.
Right.
Has the county adapted the updated codes, Randy, or are
We
you?
just had our first reading today.
Okay.
I've gone through first readings for all our jurisdictions, and are currently doing second readings this month.
Okay.
My question is, if we go ahead and approve the proposed code, and then who knows, a couple weeks from now, whatever, get a letter saying you've approved the wrong code, you need to now do this one, is there something that would prevent us from going back and approving the other code?
No.
We just have to start the procedure over with the three readings.
That's when I responded in the letter. I said we will act accordingly if we truly are notified per this letter dated January that we still don't have. We'll pass that one too if we're mandated to do it.
So it seems to me that the two choices that we have are either delaying adopting this code in anticipation of getting a notice from the state that there's a different code we have to adopt, or going ahead and adopting the code that the county inspectors are going to be using to do their inspections, and then change if that's necessary in the future. I guess my concern is that if we've already waited for over 2 years for the state to get their act together and tell us this is the code you need to do, how long are we going to delay adopting a code? I certainly have no problem going back and adopting another, going through the process again if we have to at that time, and taking care of it then.
And I think I don't like the term strict code, because a code is a code. It's the standards within that code that may vary. And so you may have a particular standard or a particular requirement that is different from each one. You'd have to look at every specific standard that is and see if it's different at that point. And those would be the ones that would be the dilemma as to what you enforce, whether you enforce the lesser or the greater.
Correct.
And that's kind of what Randy, that's saying in a different way what you were saying before, Randy, if I understood you correctly. Yeah.
It seems like it boils down to how you interpret paragraph C, of whether you think they're talking about cities with just more than 15,000 people throughout the whole paragraph or not. And yeah, so.
I mean, the legal interpretation I have of that is based on reading a lot of statutes, and it seems to me they're saying 15 or less, we're not doing this. We're not doing this mandatory. And it doesn't, and the letter seems to support that, although there's a little inconsistency in the letter. At one point it says it should, and one point it says it's only 15,000 or more that are required.
Why does it matter what the size of the jurisdiction is?
I don't know. It's probably the idea that the cost of putting together, buying codes and different things of that nature.
I know that 15,000 population, there's quite a few requirements that will start on a community. I believe like the property maintenance, that Waverly has kind of done a toned down ordinance on that. At 15,000, that kicks in as a mandatory.
This is only the second reading.
Yeah, are we comfortable with public hearing? I would close the public hearing and have further council discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, my thought is that the county we've contracted with for inspections, if they're going to adopt the 2018 versions as stated, if we don't, we're going to have a major conflict.
Right.
We're still on the 2012 then.
Yeah, and
we don't want to do that.
And our tradespeople are confused enough with the codes, trying to work with them. And as Rod suggested, we can always go back and amend again where we're at so that we're in compliance. It may be another 2 years before the state does anything and gets their act together. So that's all I have to say at this point.
How many readings does the county have?
Pardon?
How many readings does the county have? You said you just did your first
reading today.
You have three?
Three.
And do we hear from tradespeople in the county that they don't like our set of codes compared to other?
You wouldn't hear it publicly.
Nobody makes rules.
Right.
They may not like the others either.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, compared to the
I
other,
don't think it's one versus the other. I think
the fact that we aren't necessarily consistent across the state, you're not hearing.
Yeah.
And we're more than happy to get with Bill to look into this even further and get some legal opinion on it. But the next time the third and final reading comes, again,
that'd be
it's only
good.
a second of 3 readings. We have 2 weeks before the final. We can dig into this and get more.
And maybe get an update
detail.
on the next, will we have an update on the next county reading as well by then?
Yes.
Okay.
If we will.
I would move the second reading to Ordinance 1061, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinance for the city of Waverly, Iowa by repealing Chapter 90 thereof entitled Building Code and enacting the adopted a new Chapter 9 in lieu of the entitled Building Code.
Second.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rothy.
Yes.
Sheriff.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Second reading of Ordinance 1061, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waverly, Iowa is approved 6-1, or 6-0, 1 absent. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments for any item not on the agenda.
My name is Michelle Chavez. I'm at 408 Brown Lane here in Waverly. And this morning started out just fine, like normal. Just went to work, and then I'm coming home, get back into town just before 6 o'clock, and it takes me twice as long to get across town. And why is that? Well, we've got gridlock again on Bremer Avenue. And not only that, I cannot turn left onto First Street Northwest right now because of the fact that the Adams Parkway Bridge is closed down for repairs for the next 2 months. Therefore, I am forced to go across Bremer Avenue. Then, much to my chagrin, I get across the bridge over the river and First Street Northeast and Bremer Avenue. That intersection is closed. I cannot turn left, and I am forced to go another block on Bremer Avenue where traffic is backed up for multiple blocks, like it tends to be every afternoon now as people are coming home from work. I did not have a left turn arrow to be able to get turned left very easily. I had to wait until the traffic was backed up so far that they could no longer cross 2nd Street Northeast to continue westbound on Bremer Avenue because of the lights stopping everybody back for more than a block. I finally got turned left and was able to get home and realized that it will take me less time to go north out of town and across to 218 and around just to go south towards Waterloo Cedar Falls, which will probably be my route coming home from work every day for the next 2 months. I have heard about people passing school buses with their stop arms out on Bremer Avenue because they are trying to avoid getting caught behind them as they get into downtown. I had a person just yesterday morning get over into the buffer lane and turn right to go south on 4th Street Southwest because they didn't want to wait in line for the light to turn green. It used to take a lot less time to get through town when we had 2 lanes going each direction. I heard a report that there may have been an accident involving a pedestrian the other day. Once again, I have 4 children. 2 of them are in high school right now, and one of them walks across Bremer Avenue quite often to go to work after school. The last thing I want is for my daughter to become a statistic. I am getting quite fed up with the way that I feel like our corner of town is being treated on the northeast side. There's a left turn arrow for First Street Northwest because of the fact that it's a county road and people go north and south through there. We don't have a left turn arrow to even get to the detour right now. We have to rely on the mercy of the people going the other direction or sheer dumb luck to be able to get home. Sunday's going to be interesting the next several weeks because most everybody here in town who attends Mass will be going up and down Cedar Lane to get to church. So I really wish that this city council would reassess having this 3-lane mess and put us back to 4 lanes. I mean, right now, if we have another accident on the bridge like we've had already just a few weeks ago, I'm going to have to go outside of town to get home. I'm not going to be able to go through town, and nobody else is going to be able to get across the river in town either. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone for an item not on the agenda? Moving on to the consent calendar. Following items will be acted upon by a single voice vote unless separate discussion for an item from one of the council people. Approve the purchase of 7 replacement computers and 1 new tablet from Bergen KDV of Waterloo, Iowa for $17,910. Setting the public hearing date for May 20th, 2019 at 7:00 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall to amend the fiscal year 2019 budget. Pay request from A&R Land Services Incorporated for the airport land acquisition 2012 for the amount of $1,280.70. Pay request from ATC Group Services LLC for the airport land acquisition 2012 for the amount of $1,400. Pay request from WHKS and Company for the WPC wastewater pollution control facility improvements 2020 for the amount of $58,023.97. Pay request from VJ Engineering for the water main replacement 2019 for the amount of $3,173.75. Pay request from Stanley Consultants Incorporated for the Cedar River Parkway East improvements 2018 for the amount of $3,224.40. Pay request from Pit Pros Incorporated for the fall 2018 sludge hauling and disposal for the amount of $21,955.82. Class C liquor license for Water Street Grill. Class B liquor license for Bremer County Fair Association. Class B native wine permit for renewed purpose. And cash disbursements for March 2019. And I don't have the amount, but I believe in this was consent calendar was equipment purchase for the golf course?
It's a separate item.
Separate, okay, I'm sorry.
You're fine, sir.
Entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move the approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion made and seconded on the consent calendar. Any discussion? Any particular item? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Consent calendar is approved. Regular business. Approve the purchase of 500 65-gallon and 250 35-gallon blue recycling carts from Elliott Equipment of Grimes, Iowa, for the new recycling program that we adopted.
I'll move approval of what the mayor just read with the price tag of $40,437.50.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any council discussion? All those in favor of the approved purchase of 500 65-gallon and 250 35-gallon recycling carts, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Purchase is approved. Approve the purchase of 2 Ford F-150 pickups from Rolling Ford of Shell Rock, Iowa for the Parks and Vegetation Management Divisions. Entertain a motion.
I'll approve the purchase of 2 Ford F-150 pickups from Rolling Ford of Shell Rock, Iowa for the total bid amount of $58,576 for the Parks and Vegetation Management Divisions.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. Any questions for Tab? All those in favor of the motion to purchase 2 Ford F-150 pickups, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Purchase of 2 pickups from Rolling Ford of Shell Rock is approved. Resolution 1982-82, a resolution approving the purchase of golf court instructional equipment from Flight Scope of Orlando, Florida for the Golf Pro Department. Entertain a motion. Oh, Garrett, do you have a presentation?
Jordan will, who I'll introduce here in just a minute.
Okay.
I'll let you guys do your thing first.
All right, thank you. Motion for Resolution
I would
1982.
move approval of Resolution 1982, approving the purchase of golf course instructional equipment from Flight Scope of Orlando, Florida for the Golf Pro Department for the not-to-exceed amount of $10,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Wait for council discussion after the presentation.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, it's my pleasure to introduce Jordan David, our golf pro. He's going to give you just a little look here at this instructional equipment from Flight Scope.
Okay, very good, thanks. Welcome, Jordan.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you guys tonight. We are talking about the Flight Scope XI Tour launch monitor here that is pictured on the first slide here. This capability is shown outdoors. Hopefully someday we get that opportunity. For the time being, we're going to be using this outdoors hitting into a net, so we're not going to have a full ball flight The key for this, as we lose a range here in town, is being able to show junior golfers and instructional clients how their ball is flying out into the air. So second slide here, you can see a pretty nice golf shot being displayed, not a lot of movement right and left. This is what Tab's golf shot's going to look like after he retires.
With some lessons, maybe.
Straight in the air, straight down again.
Right. So the value in hitting into a net is that we're going to be able to show them where their golf ball's going. The value to me is seeing the metrics on the right side and below there on that screen. That tells me what their golf ball's doing. That tells me how I can help them and how I can make them better. So a lot of value in this for me and the consumer. Moving along here, this is where our junior golf aspect's really going to come in. This is called your Flight Scope Combine. This is a practice opportunity for not only juniors, but anybody that wants to sharpen up their game. In this particular picture, the subject is hitting a 165-yard shot, and in return, the system is giving them points for how close they hit it to the middle of that target. So a competitive way to practice, a good way for our juniors to play against each other, or for me to have them in an instructional setting there. Whoops, went too far. The system itself is wireless and portable, connects to an iPad, again, wireless and portable, so we'll be able to take this and use this anywhere. Any future changes to our golf course, we can take it along with us, so this will be very valuable as we move forward. When I get done with a customer or a junior, we can go ahead and send a report to them. They'll have that to keep. They can compare it to future reports and see what kind of gains they're making as they work on their golf swing. This particular unit is going to give us 25 metrics, and we'll move ahead to the next one here. There's two different types of metrics you can get when you hit a golf shot. There's ball data, as you see in the left column there, ball speed, launch, is it going left, is it going right, things of that nature. What makes this unit elite is that it's also going to give us club data. There's not very many units out there that do that, and there's even less that do it outdoors. So when we found this was going to be very important to us. What we have right now is we have a launch monitor that doesn't show us any flight, which wouldn't be very good for hitting into a net, but our current launch monitor gives us 4 metrics. This new one is going to give us 25 ball and club metrics. So in my opinion, this is going from Little League to the major leagues pretty quickly. So most importantly, what's it going to do for us? My favorite thing about this is being able to take care of all of your game improvement needs at our facility. Taking things off-site and doing it at other people's facilities, that's never been in my interest, but being able to handle everybody's needs at the Waverly Golf Course is what we're trying to do. So very important there. Club fitting wise, like we said, we're going from 4 to 25 metrics there. That's a pretty elite change for us, and that's something that people would travel to get to, and that would be an icon in the community. A lot of golf courses don't have this type of equipment. So we discussed briefly junior golfers, invaluable. What we see right now is that we have a pretty darn good junior golf program, and we get great numbers, but as they get into middle school, as they get into high school, there's so many things pulling them in different directions. So having a tool that they could get excited about, giving them an opportunity to practice and a valuable experience, I think could retain these golfers and make them lifelong golfers, which is always the goal. Promotional. This is our hitting area we're looking to have pretty centered just by our practice green there, right at the 10th tee and by the country club. So there's a lot of activity in that area. This would be a great promotional tool for us to do some closest to the pin challenges, long drive challenges, anything we can possibly do to engage golfers and improve their experience. And finally, practice, like we said earlier, juniors, golfers of all ages, giving them an opportunity to practice with some of the best equipment out there. So that would certainly be our goal with this purchase. Any questions at this time?
Okay, that's questions for Jordan.
So Jordan, as a golfer, back to the first picture. So where's the golfer standing and swinging?
Sure.
The one before, yeah, there.
Sure. So this unit is going to be set up 9 yards behind the golfer, 9 yards behind. So it'll be hitting 9 yards directly in front of that. And you've got about a 3-yard radius there that we can work, where you can hit golf shots at. So,
I mean, can this be taken inside during winter?
Yeah, absolutely can. Yeah.
And how much space do you need to?
We don't have a great spot right now inside. You need probably at least an 11-foot high ceiling, and that's kind of our loss there. Anywhere in that facility, we don't really have it. So, but it is portable. So if we ever came up with a solution off our radius, we could take it somewhere and we could get some value out of it.
Okay, Jordan, so for those of us who flunked golfing for dummies, which includes me, specifically, how do you use this? I mean, what does the golfer do? Where does the ball go? Are you using a ball in this case?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're going to be hitting a real golf ball into a net. And this picture right here, really all I want you to worry about as a golfer is I want you to see that ball fly. All right, I want you to see where it's going. I might teach you one or two of those metrics and what they mean and why they're important to your golf swing. Those other 23 metrics, those are for me. I don't want you worrying too much about numbers. I want you to be a field player and I want you to take good golf shots. So you certainly, if you're going to do that, you don't need a lot of things going through your head at that time. So most of the metrics are for myself, but it's very important when we're hitting into a net that we can show the golfer where their ball's going. They won't get a lot of value if they're just hitting it into a net, not understanding what their ball's doing.
So if you have 20 golfers who'd all like to use this device, they have to take a number? Is that the way that would work?
Unfortunately, yeah, we're only going to have one.
Make an appointment. Okay, I get it.
And are you doing a lot of club fitting now?
Absolutely, yeah. We've already,
so, I mean, are there other places in the area using this equipment to fit clubs for people?
No, nobody has this equipment, no. We call it a static fit. We don't really get to work off a ball flight very often, so this, like we said, we're going from the minors to the majors pretty quickly. And people would travel for this equipment.
What's your plan to market that you have this?
That's a great question. A lot of videos right out of the bat. I think I would make my numbers known. I'd show people exactly what it can do, and hopefully they don't laugh at my swing numbers. But, there's a number of different things there, but I'm big into videos, so I would certainly show them how it works and blast it out via email and social media, and that's pretty limitless there.
Going to make Tab an internet sensation.
There we go.
I mean, Tab could be your
Before and after.
poster child. How long before this becomes obsolete?
That was my question.
Ooh, that's a great question.
The salesperson probably didn't mention that.
No, absolutely not. This is pretty cutting edge stuff. I'm not sure that it's going to be obsolete anytime soon because there's not very many people that can get their hands on it. We've got a pretty good opportunity here via donation, but yeah, not very many people have it. So I think there's a lot of people like us that are just, we'd really love to get our hands on it.
So will we be charging a fee for golfers, or is this just something that's available?
Sure. I think like we said, promotionally, obviously we got closest to the pin challenges. Those things are free. We're just trying to engage people. If you want practice time, there certainly needs to be a fee on that, especially when we only have one stall or one unit. And like we said, people need to take numbers. So there will be some nominal fee there.
Jordan, on the invoice, I noticed it's refurbished.
It is, yes.
Any concerns with that, or is there a warranty that
It comes with a 1-year factory warranty, and that's kind of where they sold me at. So we get to save some decent money, and there's 1 year of warranty on that.
What was the discount, or do you know?
Yeah, a brand new unit is $9,500, I believe.
Good 30% off, 33.
Right.
And it looks like the funding's coming out of the youth golf fund. Is that funding we had set aside, or you mentioned there was a donation?
Yeah, we had an old junior golf program at the beginning of last year, or actually they had, I think I was in that program years and years ago, but they had this fund and they just had it sitting in an account, and they liked what we were doing with junior golf, and they said you can have this and put it to good use. So this is the best we see fit.
Part of Tab's agenda memo says that the Prairie Links Golf Driving Range is closed. I didn't think, is that true?
It's not closed yet. I don't want to speculate on what they have, but I know that there's a chance it could close this year.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea about how long this equipment would last before it would have to be replaced? Is this something I assume there's probably not a whole lot of moving parts, but there's radar or something that tracks this?
Absolutely, yeah, 3D radar. That's a great question. People that have had it, I don't know that they've been replacing it. I haven't.
Probably more likely that there's a more advanced unit that comes out they're buying rather than this one breaks down or wears out or something.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Jordan? Hearing none. Very good. Thank you, Jordan, for his presentation. And looks like a if you're a golfer, it looks like a good addition to the course. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor of Resolution 1982 approving purchase of the flight scope for the Golf Pro Department, say yes.
It's not a roll. Is it voice?
Our agenda manager said.
Yeah, it's a roll call.
That's not what Val has on here. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're right, she doesn't, but it is a
Okay.
roll call.
Okay, roll.
Because it's a resolution.
Roll call vote.
Okay, Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Resolution 1982 approved, 6-0, 1 absent. Resolution 1974, resolution approving the purchase of the policy and training solution from Lexapro of Frisco, Texas for the Waverly Police Department. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-74, approving the purchase of the policy and training solution from Lexapro of Frisco, Texas for the Waverly Police Department for the total cost of $11,604, less the $3,000 ICAP grant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion. Chief, you have some words you'd like to say?
If you had a chance to read it, that's great. I can follow up with any questions that you may have. Just to summarize what we talked about a little bit in the summary statement is the policy and training solution from Lexapro. I've been following Lexapro for quite a while now. One of their co-founders is a retired California Highway Patrolman. Is very versed in risk management is where his background is. He's also an attorney. And this package that they offer is strictly geared towards law enforcement agencies, correctional agencies, and what they'll give us is a set of policies that we can work off of. They also have daily training bulletin that we could use. It's called a 2-minute-a-day training program. And it does have a web platform. One of the things that we have in law enforcement, and maybe a lot of departments and companies are this way, but when you develop policy, very few people build that policy from scratch. They usually copy and paste it and then kind of tweak it to fit their own agencies. And that's what we've done for a really long time. But we don't really have a strong understanding where the foundation of that policy came from. Was it based on federal law? Was it based on state law or best practices? And so what this allows us to do is to start from scratch. And part of the fee is that they'll take our existing policies and they will go through it line by line and they'll mirror it with their policies and then they'll develop it. They'll scratch out what they technically won't scratch things out. They'll give us suggestions. It says, based on best practice laws, this is how we think your policy should read, and then we will accept or not, and we'll bring that on board. And then we'll have a final product that, again, I think one of the nicest things is it's a web-based one. So the officers, there's no doubt when this is done, it will be a more robust policy and procedures that we currently have. So with that transition, the officers will be able to access those policies in their mobile data terminals in their cars and then also on their smartphones as well. And I also like the daily, like I mentioned, the daily training program. One of the things with risk management that most of us know is that it's not the high-frequency events that usually get us in trouble. Things that we do every single day, we do a lot of. We're probably really proficient at those things. Where we lack a lot of times is the high risk and the low frequency issues. And that's where a lot of these training bulletins come from. And the officers will get quizzed and they'll have to cover those policies on a daily basis. And so 2 minutes a day ends up being, what, another 8, 12 hours of training that we can incorporate in for the officers.
Okay. Questions for Chief Purcell?
It sounds like from the materials that we have that this wasn't included in your sort of budget deliberations when you did your presentation to us for the budget.
That's correct. By the letters, you can see that, like I said, we've been watching Lexipol for a while, and then in late January, ICAP sent out that letter, and we're trying to take advantage of a grant that they just provided for anybody that's willing to go to one of these programs.
But you feel that the remaining amount you can make work within your budget?
James and I have talked about it.
When we looked at it, I was able to, luckily enough to have them redo the presentation, attend it, and go through it. And like one of the comments that struck us the most, and I think it's very true as you look around the nation, when something goes bad or something unfortunately happens in law enforcement, the first thing asked is, what's your policy say? And that will dictate, were you warned, were you not? And with the number of changes that are happening nationwide, and they're substantial, it's hard, if not impossible, for sometimes local agencies to keep up on all those changes in a timely manner, and this allows that to happen. If you look at even the budget that was presented, I'm glad the books were sitting here, the fourth item on page 9 is review and update policy and procedures to reflect legal issues and changes as needed. And we think this is not a better way to do it than have somebody who specializes in this nationwide, checking federal, state, local law, giving us updates, making sure we're compliant, cutting edge far further and quicker than we would have been able to do ourselves to protect us in case something actually does happen, which we hope, of course, it doesn't. But I just felt like this was a good use to pull this in at this time with the grant from ICAP, who's also pushing this. It all just lined up timing-wise that we think we can cover it within the budget we have. And it's just something that we wanted to make sure and bring to council to entertain.
Rich, what did you like about Lexipol compared to the other program that they mentioned?
I didn't sit through a presentation of the other company. Like I said, the reason I lean towards Lexipol is that I think the very first seminar that I went to as a law enforcement officer back in '98 happened to be Gordon Graham, who was one of the co-founders, and I've always found him fascinating. Whenever I go to the Chiefs Conference, I always sign up for his, on those breakout sessions, I always sign up for his program. And they've always had a booth, and they work from the East and West Coast, and they're working their way across the country. And so it took them a while to get to Iowa. So they've only been in Iowa for the last few years, and they don't come into a new state and offer their services until they've had a chance to research the state constitution as well as all the laws.
As part of the maintenance fee, do they provide any legal consultation? I mean, again, as James kind of alluded to, if something goes bad, the lawyer's going to ask what your policies. If you end up in court, you're going to be asked to substantiate your policy. Do they provide any assistance?
No, they were clearly. That's what our city attorney, and so what they do is when they do provide us the policies, they let us know where the foundation of that policy is from, and then, but yes, they don't provide any legal services if we were to become.
I was thinking more they would be an expert resource to be called upon.
We can call them in, especially if it gets to like best practice. I would, and I would say the majority of our policies right now, I always pull from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and a lot of those are on the best practices. So it would be nice to have all those policies that specifically spell out exactly where those come from. And that's the difference in option A and B, is there's about a $1,600 difference between option A and B. And really what it comes down to, that difference is when they go through all of our policies and they line them up with their policy, option A will say, we have that covered. Option B will say, we have it covered, and here is it spelled out specifically within our policies, paragraph B, whatever. And so it's a little bit, it will give us that reassurance a little bit. And I think that's why James also recommended to go with option B.
I think it helps you establish, it's nice to know you're covered, but it'd be really nice to know exactly where, what it says, why, et cetera. And going back to what Rich just said, if we get in a jam, the basis of where the law came from is what I think is important as well. If we just wrote something to cover ourselves, that's one thing. The federal law dictated it 2.5 years ago. Here it is. And they also keep all the different versions of it. So you have a case that goes back, say the time frame on it runs out in 3 years. So 3 years from now, somebody decides that we're going to go ahead because your law says this. What did it say 3 years ago when this happened is the key part, and they keep that information all the way back. And that helps us dictate at the time what happened in that instance, not what's it look like 5 or 3 years from now as the statute's running out. What does it help us look at? So having that base law, I think, is vital too, because it tells you why you have it, where it's from, what case it's citing, whether it's nationwide, statewide, or local. And it just kind of insulates you a little more from just having something that we drafted internally from another county's, sister's county's city 19 years ago. So it's just a fresh, accurate piece of data for us.
And then there's a lot of tracking involved with it too. James mentioned also the review. I think right now they sit at 9,000 pieces of legislation nationwide is what they reviewed as a company last year. When our officers go through the training, that is tracked. We can get reports. Whenever we have an update to a policy, once the officer reads it and accepts it, that goes on into the database. So we'll have 100% tracking. And, prior when we did our updates, there was one that just came across that we had to do. I didn't keep an old version of that policy. I just updated it, showed when my updated policy took place. And so this will give you all the other prior policies, which would be nice too.
So it looks like about 7,900 of it is annually renewed. At least that's the price right now. Okay.
So, Rich, are the policies that the police department follows created nationally, or does the city create their own, or is it a mix of those? Or I don't even know how it works, how it functions.
Right. When I took over as chief, I probably doubled our, if not tripled our policy book, and we were working pretty basic, and most of that was probably city generated. I follow a lot of the International Association of Chiefs of Police templates, and then of course tweak them. Now I'm tweaking them off of what I think works, and off of maybe my experience, the officer's experience, our other administrators, and then when we need to, any legal advice. So that's where most of ours come from right now. We have a solid. They were actually not. They weren't impressed with our policies, but they weren't disappointed. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, you don't need our,
they weren't mortified,
right? Because they've seen a lot worse. So our policies are up to date. I would put this ain't coming out right. We need it, but
it was kind of those are nice.
You're starting to sound like a Minnesota Norwegian farmer. I get you.
We were secure as a city under our policies that we had. We were, but these will be nice.
So when we've got national policy, is the city required to follow those, or do you not? The city sets its own code.
Right. There's very few policies that they say you must have. For example, in January was a new one. There was an immigration policy. There's very few cases where in state law it says you must have a policy on this. Just so happened this January, that was one of them. Was the new immigration policy that we had to incorporate. And so it'll track a lot of that thing. So instead of trying to follow, a grapevine, or you go to a yearly law update, we'll be getting this on a regular basis.
Does the sheriff's department have a policy like this, or?
Well,
or can we get them to share the cost?
So May 1st was the deadline for if you want to take advantage of the early bird, which if you got the extra money through the grant. On June 30th, the sheriff happened to walk into my office and said, hey, are you guys doing this? Because that day he had a presentation and they signed up that day. And he's also paying the extra he's doing the corrections as well. So yes, as of May 1st, the Green County Sheriff's Office.
But it's not shared.
No, it's not shared. Two different policies.
Two different policies, okay. Okay, any other questions? Thanks, Chief, for your presentation, input. Any other council discussion? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Longston?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
Resolution 1974, approving the purchase of policy and training solutions from Lexipol of Frisco, Texas is approved, 6-0, 1 absent. Resolution 1975, a resolution approving to suspend the enforcement of the prohibition of motorized vehicles on the rail trail bridge during the closure of the Adams Parkway Bridge. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-75, approving to suspend the enforcement of Section 104.7A.4 as it relates to the use of the rail trail bridge by golf carts during the closure of the Adams Parkway Bridge, with cart use limited to speeds of 5 miles per hour or less, and cart shall yield right-of-way to pedestrians and bikers at all times.
Second.
Motion made, second. Council discussion.
What happens after the suspension? Does it have to come back to us, or does it automatically go back into?
The way I wrote it is that it's when it's closed, when the bridge is closed. So once the bridge is open, it would just go away.
Okay.
The resolution.
So there might need to be some communication at that time, reminding people of the change?
Sure.
Or you could choose to extend it
Yeah.
with the closure of Cedar Lane.
And I know it's not part of this resolution, but the more I think about it, the more I think there might be some utility to having a permanent exemption from the prohibition on golf carts being on trails for the rail bridge, because it makes a lot of sense to allow golf carts. If we're going to have golf carts on the street, it's really the only way they can get across the river without going on a highway and or a main road. And the bridge is wide enough. I think that the use of the carts is going to be fairly limited. There aren't that many. It's not like we're in a retirement community where they have everyone driving golf carts on the street. So when it comes to that time, I think we should consider making that a permanent exemption. We'll see how it goes, I think, with the temporary one.
I think that was the idea, to see how this went. 'Cause
Sure.
I know there is a lot of concern from a few residents in northeast Waverly that it's not even to go out Cedar Lane and enter the Horton Road and trying to get across the Adams Park or Adams Street Bridge is not a very desirable situation. So. Any other discussion?
So we're going to need a digital speed device on there to make sure they're not whizzing across at 10 miles an hour, for example?
5 mile an hour is actually, it's a good little clip in a golf cart.
Yeah.
If you're going across the trail like that, it's bumpy enough on that bridge that you probably don't want to go any faster anyway.
Well, that might be self-policing then.
I was trying to envision how the police officers are going to enforce it. Are they going to
Wait
take
for
off
them
on
the other
foot
end.
after the?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess I mean, I think this will be a good trial run. I thought of this because I was watching a commercial yesterday for golf carts and all the different utilities for golf carts and how you can, they're not just golf carts really. And so I think, I don't want it to become like a retirement community where people are using it as their primary mode of transportation, because there is a lot of traffic on that rail bridge. So I think it'll be really important for people to watch where they're going, and I'm hoping it's going to be used for people who are trying to get to the golf course, and not, be driving their golf carts impaired.
I don't think that's what they're going to use it for. The golf course is not, to get to the golf course, you still have to traverse one of those paths.
Right.
you're heading almost the opposite way. I don't know if we should stripe it, like a left and right side, so you have like a 2-lane or maybe a third one in case they want to turn off somewhere.
About 3-lane.
Three
That's what I'm
lanes on the, oh,
In
shit.
case you want to turn when you get off the bridge.
Chief's gonna start a bicycle patrol, so they need to arrest someone that's in the basket.
I mean, the bikes are going faster.
You probably catch them on foot if they're on it.
Miniature ponies.
Does the chief have any?
We had a lot of the discussion.
No, he's avoiding. He's avoiding us. He's avoiding us. He's ignoring us.
We had a lot of discussion the other week when we were talking about this, about what exactly was a golf cart. And I know we don't really define it in the resolution. Chief, do you have an issue of being able to tell what is a golf cart and what isn't a golf cart?
No, like I mentioned before, there is the state law that has a low speed that we could use, but I would say it's fine for right now. I mean, especially on the temporary. If we move to something more permanent, we may want to try to get more definition in that.
Okay.
Because I know, as Ann mentioned, there are some that can get up there quite a bit in speed, and we may want to put a CC restriction on it if we happen to go something more permanent.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Rafi?
Yes.
Scher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Resolution 1975, approving to suspend the enforcement of, or allow, simple terms, allow golf carts on the rail trail bridge for a period of about 2 months is approved. Resolution 19-76, a resolution approving Mcclure Engineering Company's task order number 3 to the on-call agreement for engineering services at the Waverly Peninsula Airport for the Airport Runway 29 Extension 2018 project. Would entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 19-76, approving task order number 3 to the on-call agreement for engineering services from Mcclure Engineering Company of Clive, Iowa, at the Waverly Municipal Airport for the Airport Runway 29 Extension 2018 project for the total cost of $159,160.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion. Mike, do you have any input for this?
I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Scher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Rafi?
Yes.
Resolution 19-76, approving the agreement with Mcclure Engineering Company for the airport runway extension 29 project is approved. Resolution 19-77, a resolution approving the professional services agreement with WHKS and Company for the Business 218 North HMA Resurfacing 2020 project. That would be from 20th Street. Our portion would be from 20th Street northwest or west to 35th Avenue up by the airport. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of Resolution 19-77, approving the professional services agreement with WHKS and Company for the Business 218 North HMA Resurfacing 2020 project for the not-to-exceed amount of $44,424.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion.
I have just a general question on this, and not necessarily relating only to this, but we engage a lot of professional service agreements with engineers. How do we select those engineers to do that? I mean, construction companies, there are open bids, but how do we determine what engineering company we're going to use and whether their costs are legitimate?
Well, it's periodically we go through a selection process. We don't do it for every single project. We basically look at packaging types of projects. So for the airport, we went through a selection process for on-call engineering services, and that's looked at as like a 5-year agreement for projects at the airport. That process is FAA sanctioned, and it is reviewed and approved by them. We do similar types of selection processes for, again, various types of projects. 20th Street Northwest, we went through the consultant selection process, and we look at that as a multi-phase, multi-year relationship with that consultant. We've done that with our wastewater treatment facility. We've done it with 4th Street Southwest. My recommendation was to stick with Snyder & Associates on 4th Street. They've been involved in that corridor planning probably for at least the last decade. So that is kind of the process that we utilize. Again, there is just so much work going on within the city that we can't all do it in-house. We do a lot of the annualized stuff, bituminous seal coating, slurry seal, manhole rehab. We did the sidewalk, ped ramp and sidewalk repair program. It used to be that we would phrase it in such a way that a third of our projects would be designed, developed, and administered in-house. A third are very large, very complicated, would be taken care of by consultants that we would engage them to not only do the design but also the project inspection admin. And then a third, we would have them do the design, but we'd take over and manage and administer those projects. Again, a lot of it is volume-driven, complexity-driven. With the federal aid process, it has become more and more complex over the past 20 years to the point where we really need to be engaging consultants in that process.
I would assume that some of these consultants probably concentrate on certain types of projects. So you would have like the one that we're approving here, WHKS, that there are certain projects that they like to consult on, and there might be others, projects that there might be other engineering firms that would be more appropriate to.
For instance, airport work, there are only a handful of consultants that really specialize in airport work. Again, when we go out and do a request for proposal or qualifications, there's statewide, there's kind of a limited number. We do try to engage, again, we've had many consultants right now under contract. We have Mcclure, Snyder, Stanley, WHKS, VJ Engineering, and so we are using a wide range of consultants, and we do not try to load up one consultant. So we tend to distribute among their strengths, and I think that as far as engaging as far as the value that we receive for the services. If you have any questions or concerns, we're certainly open to addressing any of those.
I don't have any questions or concerns. I understand that the necessity is there for engaging these people because they have very specific backgrounds and expertise that we can't expect to have here at our local level. I guess my only question was, how are the specific consultants selected for each of these projects, and what kind of oversight is there in determining whether, what the process is that's used in selecting these consultants? It's basically an application and process that, these are the kinds of projects that, this is a project that we're looking at, what consultant would best fit this project?
Again, we tend to develop multi-year, multi-phase relationships with consultants on various projects. So WHKS has been our go-to consultant on our federal aid projects. They've provided, I think, very valuable service. They've demonstrated great capability and project management, both at the design, primarily at the design level in this situation. They also are based out of Mason City, where the district DOT office is, which has helped facilitate the development of the plans and the DOT, meeting the DOT requirements. So, again, I'm not quite sure if I'm addressing your question or not.
Well, the reason this came up, I was talking to someone this weekend, and I mentioned, some of the engineering firms that we use, consulting firms we use, and they said, "Oh, you don't use such and such." Shai Pattery was the one that they mentioned. And I said, "No, I don't recall their name ever coming up." And he said, "Well, why don't you use them?" And I had no idea.
We did use them on quite a few projects right around 2000. They were involved in the 10th Avenue project, the first big project of that sort. Consulting firms get stronger, weaker on the capabilities of their staff, and staff do change. So we've had very good relationships with some consulting firms that, due to staff changes, we looked at, do we want to continue with them? And we've maybe gone out for RFPs in those situations. So with this particular project that you have right now, it took us probably 6 to 8 weeks of discussion to refine the scope and reevaluate what the project was going to be, because we were running into some budget concerns, both on the construction as well as the design of this. We originally were looking at tying in like work on Horton Road. We've previously discussed that. That was pulled out due to budgetary constraints. Additionally, we have narrowed up the paved shoulder section. We were looking at doing the section, the South Mile, having wider paved shoulders, and again, due to budgetary constraints, as well as one thing that WHKS was very helpful in is obtaining the construction plans for the existing pavement that go all the way back to 1925. So upon pulling those out of the DOT archives and evaluating what we have for the pavement sections, it was originally built as, I believe, an either 18 or 20 foot wide concrete pavement, and then in the 50s they widened it, and then they overlaid it, and then they overlaid it again, and those things are very, very helpful. And so what our scope of the project evolved as we got more and more historical information, and so that process was evolved as we engaged WHKS in determining what is an appropriate repair and rehab that would also fit our budget.
So I think what you're saying is that these decisions are largely based on you and your staff's experience and expertise. Sometimes that results in RFPs for more than one firm, and sometimes it doesn't, depending on the specific
right. And then we get into, right, and then like 20th Street was kind of a whole new venue, whole new corridor, whole new, and so the decision made with that project was to go out and do RFPs and RFQs, and I think some of you were involved in that process. And that has hopefully will result in, again, more phases of the work being done. Our recommendation would be to continue with Mcclure Engineering as long as they are performing to our satisfaction in this process.
I think that's the whole thing, Rod, to try and summarize all that and do a brief answer for you. Most cities have a stable of engineers that they do like to use. They have a good experience with them. They keep 4, 5, 6, depending. Some cities use one and only one. When I look at my peers across the state, depending where you are in the state, you may have a lot more that you're doing depending on the volume of work you're doing. we do get solicited by Fox and Bolton and Mank, Shive, Headley, JEO, GGR, CGA constantly. And then we have the other 5 that Mike has mentioned. So there's a ton of interest in doing business here and everywhere else in the state. So we do have some that when we hook into a project, like Stanley was a great example. They are in the Parkway, they did the first half as well, already had part of the plans done for the second part of it. So we let them continue through, but we had 8 different firms, I think, bid on 20 streets. It was kind of open territory, so to speak. Mcclure is one that will keep them through the 3 phases, as Mike said, as long as they keep going. But we really have kind of I hate to call it a stable, but that's almost what it seems like, of 4, 5, 6 that we like to use. We're comfortable, they do different things. But every firm could do every project to some extent. Some just specialize in more areas than others, and I think it's what you're getting at. We kind of try to use their specialties, but yet, WHKS is also our bridge inspector, so it was natural when we had Green Bridge issues, that's the firm you use.
Sure.
So in a nutshell, each city has their own group they kind of use, but once in a while we do open it up to a bunch to take a shot and bring somebody new in, and sometimes it does and sometimes we don't. But
And what I'm remembering about Mcclure, even though there were a lot of other RFPs, but they had, I believe, rail experience, right? Rail experience that was better than the others.
Right. And
Because we had two railroad tracks that were
Right.
involved in that project.
that was one of the deciders.
Shive Hattery did submit a proposal on that one. I don't recall if they made the short list or not, but they did submit, and we did reach out to them.
I would think too, with using 5 or 6, we would be able to see cost across those to know if one of them are getting out of line with what the rest of the industry is doing, that type of thing.
And they all know we use 5 or 6 as well. They know as well as we do who's doing what project and what's doing where, and who's in, who's not. They keep abreast of that for that very reason, to make sure we don't get a little too far out, because there's plenty waiting to jump in if you do. So yeah, it's just kind of a cross-section of what's been working for us, and at some point, as Mike said, if staff changes, we may decide we do want to open it up for an RFP again. It all changes. And so right now, this is kind of how we're going.
Are you required to take the low bid or not?
It's not a bid, it's qualification based.
Professional service like that is
Yeah.
really your best bid that you feel is going to help you do the best project possible. It's not really construction where it'd be low, but it's always nice if best bid is low bid, but it's not always the case. And it is really kind of a, what do you offer us versus this is how much it charges for it, because they won't know till they get into the project themselves, the hourly rates and what they look like.
So can you do some negotiating on that? So you've got the best qualified contractor or engineer. Suppose you suspect they're a little high, can you say, well, we want you to do the job, but this is a little bit out of our budget, or how does that work? You just tell them whatever you think it's going to cost, that's what you got to do?
So with this one here, that's effectively what we did. We got what their fee was based on what they thought was the scope of work, and we went back and we said, that seems high. What do you have involved in that? And so we started stepping through it, and so these are not to exceed contracts, so they're going to aim high. And we also look at kind of what their track record is, and how are they always basically maxing out the not to exceed, or where are they coming in? And so this is also incentive for everyone within the city to try to make the process go as smoothly and as efficiently as possible, so that we don't have wasted time, wasted effort, that we're making it an efficient design process, because we know that's going to ultimately impact the cost to the city. So we don't do lump sum, we don't, unless it's a very small project, but we stay clear of those. With the airport, with Mcclure's, given the size and scope of it, the FAA actually requires that we do an independent fee analysis. And because we have John Meyer on board, and what I like is he was the CEO of a consulting firm until he retired and came to work for us. So he has insight, and we have him do the independent fee analysis, which is, again, reviewed by the FAA, and to make sure that the scope of services and the charges that are being outlined by Mcclure Engineering to do the construction observation and project administration on the city's behalf is a fair and reasonable accounting of expected charges.
I think your last 6 paragraphs are really helpful information. Thanks. No, I mean that.
Okay, any other questions?
I think we beat it. I think.
Roll call vote, please, on Resolution 19-77.
I'm so sorry. Waldstein.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sher.
Yes.
Resolution 1977, approving the professional services agreement with WHKS for Business 218 North 2020 resurfacing project is approved, 6-0, 1 absent. Resolution 19-77, approving the Iowa DOT agreement for
19-78.
78, sorry. It's been a long night already.
We've done all 78 tonight, I think.
Resolution 1978, a resolution approving the Iowa DOT agreement for traffic safety improvement program, funding for the 4th Street Southwest Improvements Project from near 3rd Avenue Southwest to near 8th Avenue Southwest. I'd entertain a motion, please.
Well, I'll move approval of Resolution 19-78, approving the Iowa DOT agreement for traffic study improvement program, funding for the 4th Street Northwest Improvements Project from near 3rd Avenue Southwest to near 8th Avenue Southwest for the not-to-exceed amount of $300,000 or the actual cost of the TSIP eligible, whichever is the smaller amount.
For a second.
Second.
Council discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Sher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Resolution 19-78, approving the DOT agreement for TSIP funding for the 4th Street Southwest improvements, carried 6-0, 1 absent. Resolution 19-79, a resolution of intent to commence a public improvement project for the Waverly 4th Street Southwest Improvements Project and acquire property and easements for said project. Entertain a motion.
I will move approval of Resolution 19-79 as read by the mayor.
To a second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for 4th Street Southwest improvements. Council discussion.
I think according to the Waverly newspapers, this is also known as the DQ to BK project, is that
Right.
correct?
It is.
Well, the young kids are calling it, Mike. It's very hip lingo, BK to DQ.
What I will address is tomorrow there will be upon approval of this tonight, there will be a letter going out to the adjacent property owners tomorrow informing them of our neighborhood meeting on May 21st.
Okay. Any other council questions, discussion?
Knowing that part of this refers to land acquisition, just how much is needed other than easements?
Very little, but we do a blanket overlay of the entire corridor, because if you try to narrow it down to, let's say it's just 2 properties, and then you find out that there's a 3rd property that may need it, but they weren't involved in the notification process, then it comes into question, do you have to start the process all over again? So what we do is we want to do blanket notification to everyone along the corridor, as these are primarily all temporary construction easements. And even at that, it may be extremely limited in scope to maybe the replacement of water and sewer services. There is one property that may be subject to some acquisition. It relates to the replacement of the box culvert. So, and again, it would only be land that is related to that work specifically.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
Kangas.
Yes.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Resolution 19-79 of intent to commence public improvement project for Waverly 4th Street Southwest improvements carried 6-0, one absent. Resolution 19-80, a resolution accepting the Coleman Park poured-in-place safety surface improvement project as complete and approving final pay request. Entertain a motion.
I move approval of Resolution 19-80, accepting the Coleman Park poured-in-place safety service improvement project as complete and approving final pay request of $49,750 to Boland Recreation of Marshalltown, Iowa.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Approving Resolution 19-80. Council discussion.
It's a great improvement. Great project.
It's open. So make sure everybody knows, it's open now.
Yeah.
There's
Is the
tape around it
tape
because
up?
there's no grass there.
Oh, you're gonna leave the
But,
tape up.
We're trying to grow a little bit of grass.
It's been being used.
I took a picture
A lot.
during the art walk
Yeah.
last weekend. There's like 60 kids on it.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. And if you drop Mike Cherry off of one of the things, he wouldn't get hurt.
So safety testing.
Bring my granddaughter over in a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other council discussion, questions?
I guess just the experience of doing it, do we anticipate?
Yeah, boy, it was a trip.
Do we anticipate trying to do this at other playgrounds?
We got pretty much indication from council and the Leisure Services Commission that we should be looking at this in other areas as well. I think that it won't be quite as expensive per square foot because in this situation we did a concrete base where if it wasn't next to the river we might do a packed gravel type.
Which would make it even softer.
Which would make it, well, this is underneath all the stuff.
I know, but still.
We need to
But it'd be a lot
help
cheaper. We keep on saying that.
Your days of we are limited. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
McKenzie.
Yes.
Rafi.
Yes.
Scher.
Yes.
Waldstein.
Yes.
Drinkow.
Yes.
Kangas.
Yes.
Resolution 1980, accepting the Coleman Park poured-in-place safety surface is carried 6-0, one absent. Resolution 19-81, a resolution approving the payment of TIF, hotel, motel, and upper story and facade improvement rebates to be paid in this fiscal year, 2018-2019. Entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 19-81. I'll also want to approve it. Move to approve it, approving the payment of TIF, hotel, motel, and upper story facade improvements rebates to be paid in this fiscal year 2018-19 for the following: GMT Corporation, $23,109.40. Carmi Flavor and Fragrance Company, $14,693.89. Waverly Hotel Group, LLC, Hotel Motel Tax, $64,188.67. Waverly Hotel Group, LLC, TIF, $99,145.56. Ann's Liquidation Service, LLC, $1,989.21. Ann's Liquidation Service, LLC, $433.83. Best Ventures, LLC, $2,315.84. Zachary Bashorner, $3,958.33. Brian Snyder, $4,905.54.
Second.
Motion made and second. Council discussion.
I'd just like to point out, as was mentioned in the briefing, that these are all amounts we've already committed to pay. These are not new amounts that we are paying, we're just fulfilling a commitment that we've already made.
I would also point out for the first time that we're doing this upper story facade grant. Every one of them except for the first one from Ann's, I think the increased valuation, the personal investment in the projects exceeded the increased valuation in each case except for one. And that's a substantial amount. I noted those numbers just because those are very substantial.
Yeah.
I know they got a lot of grant money, but there was a lot of personal money in that too.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Rafi?
Yes.
Sher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
Yes.
McKenzie?
Yes.
Resolution 1981-81 approving rebates to be paid this fiscal year is approved, 6-0, 1 absent. Second reading of Ordinance 1062, an ordinance amending Section 104.4.01 fireworks of the Waverly Municipal Code and setting a public hearing. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the second reading of Ordinance 1062, an ordinance amending Section 104.4.01 fireworks of the Waverly Municipal Code and setting May 20th, 2019 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of City Hall as the date, time, and place for a public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Council discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Sher?
Yes.
Waldstein?
Yes.
Drinkow?
Yes.
Kangas?
No.
McKenzie?
No.
Rafi?
Yes.
Resolution, or second reading of Ordinance 1062, amending Section 104.4.01 of the Fireworks Code. Set a public hearing for May 20th of 2019 is approved. 4 yes, 2 no, 1 absent. Approval of the mayoral appointments. Approve the following mayoral appointments. Chris Glazer, reappointed to the Airport Commission for term ending May 2024. Jane Wolensine, reappointed to the Airport Commission for a term ending May 2024. Lori Nelson, replacing Carla Shea on the Board of Adjustment for a term ending May 2020. Entertain a motion.
I would move the mayoral appointments as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded approving mayoral appointments. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Mayoral appointments are carried 6-0, 1 absent. Reports from boards and commissions. Senior calendar for May of 2019. To remind everybody that the public dinner is open tomorrow from 11:30 to 1:30, I believe, and so Philly cheesesteak, I think, is on the agenda, or on the menu? On the menu.
And the agenda.
You're right. Senior calendar received into records. Staff comments.
Okay. You're all welcome to come to the little ditty on Friday from 2 to 4. I have a few things to say at 2:30, and I'll try to be nice to all of you. I did figure out that I've done about 1,200 city council meetings and about 500 leisure services / golf commission meetings. So I think that's about 3,000 hours of these meetings. So I don't know if to say thank you very much or.
Probably be that, take this job and.
Yeah. But thank you very much. I'll have a lot more to say on Friday.
Mike, I know that you probably wouldn't volunteer it, but I would like for the public, for you to give a response to the public. What's going on with the bed ramp replacements, et cetera, downtown? What happened and who's paying for it? And,
Okay. I want to be a little careful here because it's the DOT's project, not the city's.
Right.
And so I want to be a little careful. I don't want to speak for them or anything like that. As far as what we know about the work that's being done is these are ped ramps that were done in 2017 that there was something about them that doesn't quite meet the ADA requirements, so the Americans with Disabilities Act. And where I will kind of venture into the discussion here, it has to do with when the ped ramps, you approach them from the side, that it's supposed to have a more gentle slope. So if you're walking kind of along kind of the back of the curb or in these bump out areas, the walkway is kind of treated as that whole area because it's all concrete. And so if you're readily able to approach the ramp from the side, some of them made that transition a little too steep. And so that's why you're seeing them replace curb and gutter, and that curb is really being flattened out to create a more gentle transition. That is what is required by the ADA design criteria. Now, not all of those ped ramps are readily approachable from the side. There might be a traffic signal pole or a fire hydrant that does not make it readily a pedestrian path. So not all of them fit this criteria, and that's where, they're making that determination, and they're determining which ones are readily approachable from the side, which ones would not fit that criteria, and they're making those adjustments. They feel that upon reviewing it, it's best to get it taken care of now so that, we are in compliance. We as a city and city council just went through that when we heard from the high school group asking, why is there no ped ramp? We have a ped crossing. We have a ped ramp on one side, but not the other side. Shouldn't we be making it a complete and ADA compliant crossing? And so the DOT went through that same process and said, you know what? We need to make some adjustments. We want to get it done right the first time. And so they're back in making some adjustments to the ramps that were installed in 2017.
And who's paying for them?
The DOT.
Very good. Thank you, Mike, because we've got questions this afternoon about what's going on, and it's not the first one. And I've explained, you and I had discussion early on, and so I've explained it the best that I could.
And some people think that the bump outs are being replaced in their entirety.
No. Again, I was really glad to see the paper a week or so ago where
last week, yes,
right on above the fold made very clear this is a DOT decision, this is a DOT project. You talked to Roy Gilhouse, the construction engineer in the project, and hopefully that helped clarify it, that this is their project, their issue, their cost, and we're not involved.
Very good. Thank you.
Which somewhat leads into comments earlier tonight about congestion. I mean, some of this we have no control over, so yet we're disrupting traffic because of the bridge project that we had nothing to do with what the DOT was doing up by Redeemer Church, making that a one-way or single lane for two traffic, people not being able to turn off of Main Street. Again, I don't know what to say other than we're not making this, it's not our goal to make people's life miserable, it's just part of the process, and people need to understand that and do look for alternate ways to get around the community during these periods.
And there's always comments that we should have waited, we should have done this, we should have done that. I don't know that there is a good time to replace a bridge with that kind of volume. If anything, we're seeing how much traffic did travel across that bridge. And I know the comments are made earlier regardless if it was 4 lanes or 3 lanes, the bridge is what the bridge is, and it still would have caused the same congestion problem. So again, we get caught up in a lot of that small issue when the larger scope is we have a bridge we have to repair. And in order to do that, to get the other traffic going, this was the time frame to do it, and it's when we had to do it. So we didn't have a lot of choice in it in the sense of, yeah, we can wait another year, and then it backs up a lot of other things.
Well, I always feel
It's not
like,
gonna
I
make
mean,
it
at
worse.
least when you're talking with us, and maybe it's also a problem with not getting as much detail of the discussions leading up to decisions out to the public, but I feel like whenever we've asked you, you've always come back with pretty sound reasons for the phasing and the timing that you've decided upon after a lot of deliberation and knowing the specifics of the projects.
And this one in particular was on the calendar to be done before I even started with the city. This is 4 or 5 years in the making and scheduled to this time period to get that bridge done. It's no secret we've been doing it for years, from the budget hearings to the recent discussions, the paper, everything. So there shouldn't be any shock that that's happening right now, and it is going to cause some congestion. It's construction season. That's what happens. It's just everywhere. So
I don't have an issue with the timing on these projects. It's something that needs to be done, and I think that it's quite clear that a lot of the congestion today and probably going forward is because of the bridge closure on Adams Parkway. But boy, it was a mess today. I mean, a gigantic mess. Is there anything at all that the city can do to try to get the traffic moving faster? Is there anything we can do with timing the lights or having, during the intense traffic times, have people directing traffic or anything? Because if this is going to be for the next 8 weeks, it's going to be really hard for people to take.
Well, it was the first day. I mean, there's a lot of adjustment that people have to understand, the traffic, the timing, and different routes you can possibly go. I mean, it was the very first.
No, except there's only one bridge. There's only one bridge that this traffic can take, basically, without, as Ms. Chavez said, without driving all the way around town and going on county roads and coming back in on Highway 218. So I think that there's going to be a fairly significant amount of traffic and traffic backed up until this project is finished. And maybe there's nothing we can do. Maybe it's just, we just have to grin and bear it. But, I would really encourage that, the city staff and the police take a hard look at it and say, is there something we can do to get this traffic moving faster? Because my fear is that there are going to be a lot of short tempers. There's going to be a lot more potential accidents. I was outside today for about 45 minutes watching the traffic from about, it's about 4 o'clock until I had to go home and eat so I could come to this meeting. But there are a lot of people that were scooting through red lights because they didn't want to get caught behind a light, and there are all kinds of bad things people were doing. And my fear is that that's just going to lead to more chaos. So if there's anything we can do to try to make the traffic move a little bit more efficiently, I would really suggest that we take a hard look at doing it and doing it faster rather than waiting for it.
Well, I would say a conservative estimate is that it dumped at least 2,000 more cars on East Bremer Avenue, for instance, today, because of the bridge being closed. But on the contrary, I witnessed, in fact, I did it a few times going across town about 4 o'clock, headed east to west. And I noticed a lot of people, they were looking ahead, traffic stopped at the intersection in front of you, and nobody's moving, so turning traffic or cross traffic, they were politely motioning to go ahead and make a turn, a left turn or whatever needed to be, let a few in from the side streets. And so it's not all gloom and doom. There is some good things happening, but no, I would agree. But hopefully by the end of 8 weeks, we'll have it figured out and everything will be, but no, I received an email, and I think Mrs. Chavez alluded to it. You've got to change it back immediately. It's not going to happen. Just as well get off of that horse for at least the next 18 months. Nothing's going to happen until the traffic study is done. And then it remains to be seen if the study warrants changes to what we already have. But
Well, the traffic today, I mean, I would argue is probably largely due to the Adams Bridge closure, not to anything different about the lanes.
Yeah, no, that's what everybody's alluding to. But, they think just because it was 4-lane, the line that I saw in my rear view mirror was probably 3/4 of a mile long, between a half and 3/4. If it was 4-lane, it would be 3/8 to a half a mile. And you aren't going to get through any quicker. And in fact, probably the inside lane would be slower because people were trying to make left turns and use it as a through lane. But no, it's not going to happen. We'll visit it when the proper time comes, and until then, just ask. I know it's an old story and an old comment, but please be patient. And comments about people were passing school buses, stop school buses with stop arms out. That's a violation of the law to begin with, and Chief Purcell and I had a brief conversation about that prior to the meeting, and I think they're going to deal with that. It's very specific on what you can do and can't do. So, as I said, it's an old cliche, but please bear with us. And as they said, things are going to always have to get worse before they're going to get better. And, hopefully by the 1st of August, Cedar River Parkway will be open, and that will make a significant change in the traffic of downtown Waverly. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. So, any other staff comments? City Council, sir. City Council comments.
I didn't think of it when Jordan was here, but Tab, I think I was watching a Cubs game and saw an ad for the Waverly Golf Course. Was that something he initiated? How was that put together?
We had some new drone video that was taken, and we contacted the ICANN and put together an ad. And yeah, I've seen it several times.
It was very well, I mean, it caught my eye, and it was very well done, and the footage was very good. So hopefully it will help with getting people back on the course. And
So how far does an ad like that get distributed, and is that expensive?
Well, it costs something, and I don't know how far it gets distributed. I think it gets in this general region, though. I've been seeing Wave Utilities ads as well, just recently.
Has to do with the cable reach, I think, or cable audience.
Blake, do you have any comments or questions you'd like to?
Nope.
Okay.
I guess I would just like to, yesterday was the start of Ramadan for those of the Islamic faith. Wish everyone of those citizens in our community a happy Ramadan as they observe that. And then personally, I'm not going to be able to make Friday because I'm still at school, but I want to thank Tab for his service and congratulate him for making it this far.
Yeah, thank you.
Just want to mention that this Saturday, 2 big events. The opening of the community garden is happening. Anyone who's interested in learning how to garden can arrive at 9 o'clock. And then there's also our first, hopefully, annual Embrace Diversity Festival is at Coleman Park. The weather forecast looks good from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So hopefully people will come out and check that out.
There's also a girls' soccer tournament this weekend for Waverly Shell Rock. So another weekend.
Big weekend.
Soccer.
And something about the historical preservation of the library.
Historical preservation of the library.
Yep.
In case anybody missed it, the farmers market opened last Saturday, and seemed like a pretty good number of vendors were there, and a lot of people turned out. I think they did pretty well considering the fact they had to compete with the pancake breakfast at the fire station and the art walk in the city
Yeah.
park. But I hope people go down to the farmer's market and give them some business.
Last Saturday was probably one of the busiest
Yeah.
days in Waverly in a long, long time. Firemen served somewhere between 375 and 400 pancake breakfasts. And the art walk, farmer's market, the soccer tournament went all day. Wartburg bicycle
Triathlon, yeah.
and I heard, is it 270 some people I heard were
I don't know.
registered for that?
Could be.
296.
Were you registered?
Yes.
So, yeah, if you thought traffic in Bremer Avenue was busy, there was a reason Saturday for everything. But the art walk was very successful, and the farmer's market did have a great opening and things. There's a childcare meeting tomorrow afternoon, late afternoon, for the public at the library. And open house Friday from 2 to 4 for TAB, and there's a little presentation at about 2:30, as I understand it. And
He said he had a lot to say. Yeah.
He's going to talk fast.
I will too.
Is Mike talking?
do you have a reply, Tab? No. Not at this time.
Stop a little across the street from it.
All right. I have no other comments at this point. Just to the public, be patient and it will work out somehow. And entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move adjournment.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Opposed? We are adjourned.